Keisha, good to see you. We're getting the got it. We got it. All right. We have been asked, yesterday you weren't here. Senator, this is the local options tax in the South Hero. All right. Senator Hardy is going to put in an amendment that would take out all of the South Hero stuff and leave South Hero at this point, because she said she is not taking the bill off, so they won't have a charter and they won't have a local option. If the local options tax goes through, they will then be able, I guess, to revote unless we do something like do an amendment to say they don't have to revote. Anyway, yesterday, about 5:30, I think, we voted not to take a stand on the amendment. We voted to be neutral on the pro tem feels that we need to give guidance to the body and be yes or no on the amendment, thus the discussion. And we wanted to have Tucker in the room. We tried to meet at 12:30, but didn't succeed well.
Sorry about that.
And Tucker is here. And yeah, fine, Tucker can come up and sit in a comfortable seat. Approach the bench. And I now really do have a quorum. So I think we can say yes, no, or yes with further amendment, which would say they don't have to do a second election, which might be the closest thing we can come to make everybody happy. Any other thoughts?
So we did have a discussion around 12:30 today, Senator Ron Hinsdale, and in that, I believe what was percolating was the further amendment, yes, with further amendment to add back the South Hero language and to also instruct, and this is where we were like, yeah, we could use Tucker, to instruct, guide, motivate the Secretary of the Senate to craft a stern but informative letter.
I don't think it's the Secretary.
Okay.
I think we can write one.
Okay.
With the help of counsel. We will write a letter. We don't have to, we can just write a letter. But I guess that's what I'm trying. We weren't quite ready to vote. If we want to approve, disapprove, or approve with amendment, which could be the, so Senator McCormick, you seem to be the one that had the most questions.
Yeah, thanks. My question is really this, that the Vermont is a Dillon rule state. The towns exist as creations of the state, and their powers are delegations from the state. And I am wondering if South Hero got out of line in that regard. And it sounds sort of like, someone once said to me, I'm an eldest child. The eldest child knows all the rules and makes sure everyone else follows them. And there is that nitpicking oldest child. This has a look of just grabbing something, but I worry about being irresponsible about the state's, literally the state's sovereignty. And so that's what I'd like to, I understand what Senator Maza is trying to do is first, which is cut the town a break. They screwed up. They didn't mean to cut them a break. Trouble is cutting someone a break when they kind of violate the sovereignty of the state. So if you could just kind of hold forth on that.
I would love to, and you almost perfectly quoted Justice John Dillon, for whom Dillon's rule is named, but he was a little more biblical and eloquent in his opinion when he said that
I've had enough of eloquence. I need short and to the point.
The state breathes life into the municipalities, and so can it take it away. Just as it may create and control municipalities, so may it destroy. Baseline, all power exercised by municipalities is delegated legislative authority. If it's not in statute, if it is not fairly implied by explicit delegated authority, municipalities do not have it. The General Assembly established 24 VSA section 138 as a way for certain municipalities, meaning specific financial criteria, to be able to adopt local option taxes. I do not know the specific number. There is an unofficial list that was put together by the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. It consists of some 40-odd towns, villages, and incorporated districts that are capable of adopting a local option tax. South Hero was not one of them. South Hero's ballot specifically referenced 24 VSA section 138, even though they did not have the authority. And although they followed the proper election procedures under that statute, they weren't allowed to.
Okay,
And they also did not adopt a charter. That is a creation of Senator Mazza's bill, and it was a way of both approving what South Hero did and giving them the opportunity to access other types of local option taxes in the future. Because if you'll recall, when you took a look at what got put in S60, South Hero was very specific. They were only applying the local option tax to meals and alcoholic beverages. And the charter piece in there gives them the authority to add in sales and rooms if they want to in the future, contingent on a future vote under 24 VSA section 138.
okay, but as benevolent members of the patriarchy, could we not forgive them their trespass as they go forward and sin no more?
You absolutely can. And to get to the last part of Senator McCormick's explanation / question, the sovereignty of the state would not be violated by waiving the legislative wand, because you, as the General Assembly, with patronage and control of municipalities, as it is stated in the Vermont Constitution, Chapter 2, Section 69, you are exercising state sovereignty in granting this authority and the local option tax to South Hero. That doesn't absolve any of the policy debate that you've had in this committee over whether it's a good idea.
All right, so as I understand it, Tucker, you can correct me. We have put this local options tax in, I think, 5 times. This is the 5th time. It's an annual event. It has never made it through the other body. We have a new chair over there. I don't know if she likes local options taxes any better than the last chair, or if it would make it through. So if it doesn't, that leaves South Hero without a charter and without a local options tax. And if we vote to support the amendment, the odds are that's maybe where they, unless there's been a change of heart, which is, I think, the worst of all possible worlds, because then they can't come back to get a charter, and they'd have to vote a charter, they'd have to get it in here. I don't know that they could do a charter and a local options tax at the same town meeting and then come in here and ask for both, or would we be looking for a 2-year delay?
They could adopt a charter just for purposes of the local option tax. And I think, based on my review of the town meeting results, you'll probably see 3 or 4 municipalities that did either adopt a charter or amend a charter just for purposes of a local option tax.
Okay, so committee, we cannot kick this can. I have a 4 o'clock appointment and we're gonna go through 248A. How many want to vote to say yes to the amendment?
Did we hear anything from Tucker while I was out of the room that would
Yeah,
influence it one way or the other?
depends on where you were leading.
I understand.
No, it would, they violated the law, they are, nothing
What are the
there
size?
changed. They could come back, you know, and apply for a charter. But we had a very eloquent discussion on Dillon's rule, which means they are our children and they can't do anything unless we allow them to. But we could be benevolent and say, we'll forgive you. I think that's
COVID
it.
cost, was a COVID.
There you go, it's a COVID cost.
This will be the final COVID exception.
Have we had anything like this that's happened before, where we've had a municipality do something, for example, and come for a dispensation, and it's either been granted or not been granted along those lines?
You want to tell them about the nasty letters from the house?
So perhaps not in this committee. And I'm not sure that
I
you
have not
find
seen
a
one.
substantial record in this committee or in Senate government operations. And the reason for that is the House rules are very amenable to charter introductions, particularly late charter introductions. So they almost always start in the House and get vetted in the House. House government operations has a long history of both denying and accepting with explanation. That explanation is usually a very sternly worded letter saying you did all of this incorrectly and we're going to grant things to you even though you did not follow the procedures adequately. In my time here, I have seen maybe a handful of charters either get stripped or outright denied because the charter amendment procedure in 17 VSA 2645 was not followed. And there was perhaps the feeling from the committees that because it was not followed, there wasn't adequate notice or appraisal to the voters of what they were doing. The most recent example that I could think of is the town of Bennington had a comprehensive charter revision that includes many different new powers for the town, including, for example, the regulation of drones and airspace over the town. But the question that was put to the voters on the ballot was, do you approve the charter amendments, yes or no? House Government Operations thought that was defective under the procedures and refused to add any new legislative authority to the town. But did grant some charter amendments, mostly technical corrections and cleanup, and then sent a letter saying, try again, follow the procedures.
I don't think that's been claimed. It was a pretty simple yes or no. They just read the wrong section of law and didn't realize they had to go for a charter first to do a charter change. So I really need to get this resolved. The world will not fall depending on how we vote on
Well,
this.
get it resolved. If, for example, we voted to allow them to South Hero to do this, would it be best to do it through another amendment that included in it a recognition, for statement, for example, a recognition that they did it wrong in some sort of an admonition or a private nasty letter or whatever, something that might address some of government ops feelings about this, rather than simply say, we're going to reject government ops amendment.
We could.
Does that make sense?
I'm not sure how, if we want South Hero to be able to enact their liquor law. All right, and it's really iffy, as long as it's attached to this bill, it's iffy. If we want them, if this bill passes, then they won't need a charter. So to rectify it for them, our sub-amendment might be that they don't need to re-vote. That, which would allow that they won't have a charter, but they won't need a charter. And I think it's asking them to go back because I haven't heard any questions about whether or not people knew what they were voting on. They thought they were voting on an ice cream parlor and they were voting on a liquor tax.
Well, could you, in fact, pass a bill, basically just our stripped down bill that says that towns have the ability to do a 1% tax, period. That's the end of the bill. Unless we, in fact, we add to the bill something that in the case of South Hero, a vote that was held on such and such a date will be considered a valid vote for purposes of this, even though it happened in the past. Could we do that?
a session law provision could be added that would be substantially similar to what you already have, that would say that
Okay,
South
so
Heroes
then
vote.
they maintain, the GovOps maintains control of the charter. We've got the liquor tax. We're saying if this bill finally makes it through,
Mhm.
then South Hero would not have to have a revote.
Or you could do it even in a simpler way. In the event this bill passed, any municipality that passed a local option tax before the date of this, between January 1, 2022 and the date of this bill, that vote will be considered valid or binding for this without even mentioning South Hero? Would that solve some problems?
Well,
Mention
yeah, it
South Hero.
could get questions. You'd have to, we have tightened things up. So there's only one, usually it's a business. There's a furniture manufacturer in the kingdom, that there is only one that meets these criteria,
Yeah,
that is located on an island in Lake Champlain, maybe.
yeah, north of these coordinates.
Okay,
Just a quick question procedurally, I don't remember this. So the normal way to have a local option tax would be to have a charter change, to have a charter in which you change your charter or create a new one. And you ask for the local option tax in your charter. Is that right? Did I get that part right?
unless you qualify under general law.
unless you're
And that's a
whole town.
minority of municipalities.
And when, when you follow that procedure and it goes to GovOps, for the money piece, the local option taxes, do they take care of all that or is it ever come over here?
I think local option comes here, because it's a tax, so it hits the revenues of the state.
So we end up straddling the two. It's just a question of how to diplomatically manage this.
You've got to finish this out.
I think there's also a matter of collegial respect, you know? I mean, with all due respect to Senator Mazza, he is sort of trying to cut a break as a special favor to his constituents. I think that Senator Hardy is actually right in her reading of the law.
Oh, I think she's right, and I think it's staying neutral. We thought we were doing what she wanted.
Yeah.
There was a miscommunication somewhere. And I will grant you, she grabbed me in the hall, so, you know, it was one of those. We thought we were doing the right thing. She didn't think we did the right thing. The charter and the government operations is hers.
Yeah.
Local options are ours. So if we are passing a local options tax, and if you can draft one that says, and by the way, any tax that was voted, and I'm quite sure that South Hero was the only one, because I haven't heard of anybody else coming through, but anything wouldn't have to go for a revote. Well, there's only one anyway, so.
You know, I guess you could take South Hero, you could strip it out, just pass the bill, you know, with just paragraph 1 in it and nothing else, be silent on South Hero, and then wait for the miscellaneous tax bill, put South Hero in it.
We could do that.
Yeah,
I think
retroactive.
that might get more ire from across the hall.
But it's purely tax at that point,
It is, well,
if it becomes
if she
effective.
gets really angry, she'll do it on germaneness, which we might not win. Senator Rom Hinsdale, Keisha, you've been quiet. Thoughts?
I mean, I haven't heard all of the discussion from before, but there's two things that concern me about stripping it out. You know, one is there will be an expense for them to have a reelection. And I don't know, I couldn't follow if we know exactly when that would happen, but it sounds like they could miss a really robust tourist season post-pandemic. And so I wouldn't want to delay that either. So I don't know exactly where everybody stands, but I would favor definitively including it. I was on GovOps, probably many of you were too, but I feel like Senator Hardy would probably not like me saying this, but it's kind of a what would Jeanette do? You know, I just think from my,
Lost a hero.
you know, I think it was frankly an honest mistake, and we'd be delaying them in a way that does have a financial impact to them and feels like it's standing on some kind of principle that doesn't feel as important to me. Okay,
so can we agree that we will not oppose the amendment, but we will add further amendment that says that I don't really care if you name South Hero or just say any, probably better, any town, and I'll let you word it. Doesn't have to re-vote.
Within the last 5 years.
No, last year. Don't push your luck.
Between March and April.
That's exactly right. Between 2 and 3 p.m.
I was saying, name the date that they had the vote.
Okay, well, you don't usually name specific towns.
But you did make some of it specific enough that this is the only one that fits into the category. That's really
Yeah.
what we're trying to do.
Procedurally, just so that you're aware, the bill is out of your committee. You no longer have possession of it. So this will be an amendment that comes from you as individual members. So what I'll do is I will send draft language to the chair, and you will solicit your fellow senators.
By 1 o'clock tomorrow.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Everybody can check in with Jill and sign off. Okay, Senator Bray.
It's short. Is there any structural difference the way you write it, if it were to be offered as a substitute amendment as opposed to just a further amendment?
Yes, there would be a structural difference, and also there are strategic differences. So that's something you may have to discuss amongst yourselves for when and how the amendment is offered. Would this be further amendment to the amendment offered by the individual senator? Would this be you amending your own bill
I think it
instead
might
of
be better
addressing the
if
other
we
amendment?
amended, if we do not oppose that amendment, but we are bringing a proposed amendment, or the individuals, however many of us are bringing a proposed amendment that would not require a revote. All of that means that if this local options tax bill doesn't go through, as history says it won't, South Hero is up the creek. But I think it's the best we can do right now.
I will draft it as senators offering from this committee offering a substitute amendment for your report.
Yes, thank
Which
you.
will include section 1 of S60, and then a transitional provision, section law provision saying that notwithstanding any defects or something along those lines, any local option tax vote approved between these dates will be effective.
I think that will work.
No, I know.
I've got to leave in 10 minutes.
There are four committee chairs on this committee.
Yeah.
How do you feel about just the jurisdiction issue?
We are touching her jurisdiction.
Just are.
We pulled the charter out, so this is no longer creating a charter.
Yes, it's not charter.
There is a charter issue connected to the money. So that's why the money's. a
Right,
problem.
but that is tradition. There was this little clean water fund that this committee got a substitute amendment from Natural Resources and got another substitute amendment from the member of this committee. We rewrote the whole thing and that's what passed. So Vince regularly wrote tax policy because he said it was economic development. So
But that's why he's
this
elected.
is minimal. Okay,
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand the sequence in which things would happen if we do the substitute amendment. I present on the floor tomorrow our amendment, which includes the South Hero.
yes.
Then at that point, Ruth presumably will create her amendment, present her amendment,
Yes.
of which we will have no position
Fine
on.
with it.
And then it will vote, right? And then one of two things will happen. Either one, it will be approved, at which South Hero, we don't need to do anything else because South Hero is grandfathered in. If that's the sequence in which you're envisioning. in the
To
event
get
that,
Graham's in, we have to get our amendment, and I think
has to be in before, that's my point.
talk to the Secretary of the Senate and see how he would stage that. And that might work. Okay, and we can all meet back here.
Oh, because her
10 minutes
amendment,
to 9 in
though,
the
her
morning.
amendment was in, her amendment is in the calendar as of,
Right.
and the notion of putting an amendment in front of that doesn't strike me as being procedurally, I wouldn't think that
that's
would
what
make
we
sense.
need. And I don't know why we can't stand up and say, we voted to support the amendment with further proposal of amendment, so we would probably be amending her amendment.
But then what would you vote on first? You'd have to vote on her
Well,
amendment first, wouldn't
that's,
you?
yeah, I think so.
And that's where the rub comes in.
Okay, why don't you check with the secretary, and we'll start on 248A. And we'll get the technical, we'll work it. Tucker can go draft. And we'll work whatever we need to do. And I will try and get a hold of Ruth.
Yeah, well,
I
my
don't think
concern
I
is
will
I
be
can
able
go
to
see,
today, but
I can go see Bloomer, but based on what I'm expecting Bloomer to tell me, I'm gonna have to come back and bring,
Okay,
for the
well, that's
committee to
fine.
come back and do something,
you
because
all-
I don't
you
think
all
this is
can
doable the way it
talk
is.
after I leave and decide. I'm only
You wanna-
one vote.
Please, get back
Okay.
and see what Tucker.
Ellen. Well, we can skip 248A if that would, we've got lots of witnesses coming in on Friday. If we move Ellen down to that,
This will be quick.
I know. We only do this every 2 years,
3 years.
3 years. I guess, we did it before COVID, didn't we?
If we eliminated the sunset, we'd never have to do this again.
We tried last time, we didn't make it. We can try again.
Ellen Tchaikovsky, Office of Legislative Counsel. H110 came over from the House. It extends the sunset on 248A 3 years. Effective on passage.
Okay. And it is a House bill, so can I assume that the House had the discussion about removing the sunset? Was that?
Yes,
And decided not to.
correct. They did discuss 1 year, 5 year, 10 year, no sunset. They thought 3 was good. The last one was 3. I have the list here if you'd like to hear the prior. It was enacted in 2007. Then it was extended 1 year, and then since then it's been every 3 years.
3 years.
You
Because
have a
we're live
calculation of how many
stream.
hours we have spent moving it back and forth between the chambers and debating the same thing over and over again every 3 years since 2007,
Well, we don't trust the children.
and what that costs.
Why don't you, for those, if anyone is viewing, just tell us what 248A is that we keep extending.
Sure, so it's the optional siting process for telecommunications facilities. Telecommunication developers have the option to either go through 248A or go through the local, so municipal process and or Act 250. So by going through 248A, you don't have to go through the other two. There are 3 categories. There's de minimis projects that are usually modifications to existing ones, and that's a 21-day turnaround approximately. Then there's projects of limited size and scope, and that has a longer time frame. And then full 248 projects are the largest for the towers,
There would be a new tower.
and there's usually at least 1 hearing involved in that. So there's a pre-application notice process so that the town and adjacent property owners are aware of the application before it is submitted to the PUC. Once it gets to the PUC, there are a number of criteria that the applicant needs to address. It incorporates most of the Act 250 criteria as well as some additional criteria as well. And then the PUC reviews the project. There may be opponents, there may not be, and then they issue a permit decision.
Okay.
It's the really short version.
It is an alternative siting to basically going through local and then going through Act 250.
Yes.
Okay. So,
A quick question, please. I thought there was some sort of emergency version of all this stuff. Is that, other easy process? You know, if there's a washout or something like that, you have to do construction. I thought they had an emergency way of getting approval to do a construction again. Maybe that's, I don't know that.
There were some COVID provisions that allowed for emergency. The de minimis process is for modifications to existing things, and that, the turnaround on that is 21 days. If there's no
It's usually hanging something on the pole.
right,
or
replacing an
Replace-
antenna.
Yeah.
There were some COVID procedures that were changed just for the duration of the COVID pandemic.
We needed broadband and built and all the rest of that, so. But this has been it since I've been here. We've kind of let it go every 3 years. We've got a bunch of witnesses coming in on Friday, and Mr. Whitaker has asked to talk. If you all tell me you need to leave, I will get him in. I'm just not sure I'm gonna have time this Friday. But no, that's universal broadband. Okay, we've got Greg Faber, Jim Porter, and Hunter Thompson all coming in. And anybody else that wants to, if they let us know. And then we've got the auditor's report on broadband on Friday. All right, we're gonna run over the miscellaneous tax tomorrow, and we're gonna do a little bit more on dispatch.
Just to follow up on Senator Brock's observation, I'm wondering if the committee has any appetite for extending the deadline more than just.
I think some of us have tried.
So this definitely want to.
I support that.
Further proposals or anything.
Okay, well, we'll take the testimony if that's what the committee would like. It seems that to do it every 3 years, when as far as I know, there have not been any problems. I know there was a rash of concern when they were they were secretly putting 5G things on phone poles. That was just pre-COVID. There was a lot of trucks doing things to poles, which caused, but that turned out to be just general maintenance. So we'll listen to them, and then
5G and the death race.
yeah, well, but now they have actually ordered, the FCC has ordered the companies to do a better, because we cannot, we're getting an amendment drafted to what is the number?
S60.
S60.
Okay.
And
So maybe in a bit.
Tucker is working on
He
it.
said he was gonna come up and talk to John.
Tucker is up there right now.
Okay,
so.
and we're trying to figure out how to do what we want to do.
Gotcha.
Okay,
Sounds good. Thanks.
we figure the secretary can tell us or not.
Perfect, thank you.
All right. Okay. So we will take the testimony. It seems like some of us might be open to extending it maybe to 5 years, which might make the House go along, or maybe we'll compromise at 4, but
Yes.
well, I hear 7, yes. But it might, yeah, I mean, but on another hand, it is good to have to keep the same repetition, because then people get used to coming back here every 3 years. If we change it, they miss. Okay, I think that should do it So we are out for the day. Giving you some mercy because we had a long week last week.
Yeah.
It will be worse by the end of the.
She's back.
Tucker is back.
We're finished, so
We're done, so,
maybe we're done.
well, you're back and we haven't adjourned yet. Can we do what we want to do? Yeah, we're still,
Or is there,
we're still on. Okay, we're still on. We're still in session. So Tucker, can we do what we want to do?
Yes. But
Oh,
the way that this will be drafted and the procedural and strategic decisions you have to make is going to depend on whether Senator Hardy agrees with how you're going to move forward. Because there are a couple ways that this can play out. Part of what you're proposing is to accept the exclusion of South Hero explicitly from this bill, which is what her amendment is.
right.
In which case you could wait for that amendment to pass and then have another instance of amendment that covers all of the municipalities that voted for a local option tax within X number of months, years, however you want to write. If there's disagreement, then you have an issue where the current question before the body is the report of this committee. The amendment has not been formally introduced on the floor or come up for a vote. So the question is, whose amendment is going to be approached first by the body? And then if there's tension or disagreement between the individual senator and the senators on this committee and your amendment, then you have an issue of who's amending whose amendment, who's offering what and when. So the first step for the members of this committee in trying to advance your own amendment is to perhaps discuss with Senator Hardy
Okay,
whether there is indeed going to be conflict and then how to draft the amendment from there.
okay, and I know she's still in committee. And,
What I think I heard Senator Hinsdale say earlier is we do have the option of saying we don't approve of her amendment and
We
then introducing, but we could say that we do not approve that amendment. And we have an alternative amendment doing everything that we do. And then maybe Senator Hardy might just withdraw her amendment.
why don't we meet back here tomorrow at 8:45? Would you send an email over and ask Senator Hardy if she could join us at 8:45? Okay,
So 3 of your committee members are in the meeting at 8, the committee starts at 8:30.
Oh. Bad timing. What's tomorrow? Thursday. We're not on the floor until 1. Let's see if everybody can meet at 12:30. Does that work?
Get all this done.
And, well, I think Tucker can have it drafted. It's just the order they get taken up.
Because that's going to ultimately impact the language of the amendment. And again, procedurally, how you all are going to be addressing either the amended report or the unamended report.
Okay.
Which is also perhaps why the body needs a formal vote on how you are.
Well, the idea was that we would not oppose, that we would approve her amendment with further proposal of amendment. So we do need to talk with her. Okay, that works.
And I think you all.
I've got to go.
Okay, if we approve Senator Hardy's amendment and then offer a further proposal amendment, aren't we basically overriding stuff that she had just moved to strip?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yeah.
yes. So we can decide how much we want that for South Hero or for Senator Ross's constituents, remembering that we will all at some point have a constituent that needs help. So anyway, I've got to go. So we're adjourned. We can open the door.